My name is Cassidy Vance. As I stand in my penthouse overlooking the Hudson River in Manhattan, the cold December wind whips against the glass, but I don't feel the chill. On my office wall, framed in expensive mahogany, hangs a faded, yellowing piece of paper, a notice to vacate. It's a 1.50 piece of paper that reminds me of the day I became worth nothing, so I would never forget what it took to become worth billion. 10 years ago, life was different. I lived in River Oaks, Houston, in a mansion that felt more like a museum than a home. My father, Richard Vance, was an oil tycoon, a man who measured a person's soul by their net worth. He had spent 21 years grooming me to be the son he never had, training me to take over Vance Oil and Gas. The night my world ended started with a silver fork hitting a porcelain plate. "I'm pregnant," whispered. The silence that followed was deafening. My boyfriend, Marcus, whose father sat on the board of my dad's company, wasn't there to hold my hand. My father didn't scream. He just looked at me with a cold, clinical disgust. "An unmarried, pregnant daughter is a liability, Cassidy," he said, his voice as sharp as a razor. "You've stained the brand. You've turned 21 years of investment into a bad debt." I looked at my mother, Eleanor. She was the picture of Southern grace, dripping in diamonds. She just stared at her glass of Chardonnay, watching the bubbles rise as if they were more important than her only child. She didn't say a word. "You have 1 hour," Richard said, checking his Rolex. "Pack what you can carry. Leave the keys to the Mercedes on the table. You're no longer a Vance." I drove my car to Marcus's condo, my hands shaking on the leather steering wheel. I thought he was my escape. It thought we were a team. But when I rang the bell, he didn't even open the door. He spoke through the intercom. "Cass, my dad found out." His voice was thin and pathetic. "He told me if I stayed with you, he'd cut off my trust fund and kick me out of law school. I can't throw my life away for a mistake. Please, just go." In 24 hours, I had lost my home, my family, and the man I thought loved me. I had $412 in my checking account and a suitcase full of clothes that were too expensive for the life I was about to start. Took a Greyhound bus to New York City. Why? Because in New York, nobody cares who your father is. I found a room in the South Bronx, a 200-square-foot box where the radiator hissed like a dying animal and the walls were thin enough to hear the neighbors' heartbeats. I worked 3 jobs. 5 a.m., flipping pancakes at a Greasy Spoon diner in Queens. 2 p.m., cleaning debris at Manhattan construction sites, wearing a hard hat and swallowing dust. 9 p.m., data entry for a failing logistics startup, staring at spreadsheets until my eyes bled. My daughter, Luna, was born in April. I couldn't afford a doula or a fancy nursery. I walked into the clinic alone, gave birth alone, and brought her home to a crib I'd made out of a heavy-duty shipping box reinforced with duct tape. While she slept, I studied. I didn't have money for MIT, so I used the public library. I taught myself Python, C++, and machine learning. I stayed awake on black coffee and the pure, unadulterated desire to see my father's face when I finally made it. The breakthrough happened at the logistics startup. Their routing software was garbage. One night, while Luna was teething, I rewrote their entire back-end code. I created an AI-driven algorithm that predicted shipping delays before they happened. The CEO, a shark named Diane Sterling, found me at my desk at 3 a.m. "Did you do this?" she asked, pointing at the screen. "I fixed it," I said, wiping sleep from my eyes. "Fixing it is an understatement. You just saved this company $4 million a year." By the time Luna started kindergarten, I wasn't an employee anymore. I was the founder of Vance Dynamics. Chose the name Vance because I wanted it to be the biggest name in tech. I wanted my father to see my name on the crawl of CNBC every single morning. 10 years after I was kicked out, my assistant buzzed my desk. "Ms. Vance, there's a couple at the security gate. They don't have an appointment, but they claim to be your parents." I watched them on the high-definition security monitors. Richard looked small. His expensive suit hung off a frame thinned by stress. Vance Oil and Gas had failed to adapt to green energy. They were drowning in debt and lawsuits. Eleanor looked fragile, her southern grace replaced by a look of haunting desperation. I let them wait for 2 hours. Then, I invited them up. Cassidy, my father started, his voice cracking. He looked around my office, the floor-to-ceiling glass, the original Basquiat on the wall. We saw the Forbes cover. We always knew you had that Vance spark. Is that what you call it now? I asked, leaning back in my chair. The spark? 10 years ago, you called it a mistake and a stain. My mother stepped forward, her eyes welling up. We've lost the house, Cassidy. The creditors, they're taking everything. We have nowhere to go. I didn't feel the surge of joy I thought I would. I just felt nothing. They were strangers who shared my DNA. I pulled out my checkbook, something my father used to use like a weapon. I wrote a check for an amount that would buy them a comfortable condo in Florida and a modest monthly allowance. I slid it across the glass desk. This will keep you off the streets, I said. Richard reached for it, his eyes lighting up with greed, but I put my hand over the check. But let's be clear, I whispered, looking him dead in the eyes. This isn't a reunion. This is a buyout. I am buying your absence. You will never contact me again. You will never meet Luna. You don't get to be grandparents to a child you wanted to erase. I signaled for my security team. Show them out. As they left, Luna ran into the office, her school bag swinging. She looked at the two strangers with curios.